Sophie just got 17 of her teeth knocked out, and they called her for the foul. He says, sick league. Let's take a look.
How about our WNBA refs? This is just a defensive foul. Thank you for the review. Just a defensive foul. No hostile act, just a foul on Sophie Cunningham.
That is the moment that set everything off. Sophie Cunningham takes an elbow directly across the face. The officials review it, and somehow the final decision still leaves Sophie holding the foul. But the strangest part of this story is not the contact itself. It is what happened around it, who stayed quiet, and why this single call became evidence for a much bigger argument about the WNBA.
They call that a foul on Sophie Cunningham. She's got 14 of her teeth on the ground. That's a defensive foul. And they reviewed it for a hostile act. Yeah, Sophie's saying, hey, I just got my jaw broke. Is this a political stance? You just took 14 of my teeth. Yeah, quiet, Sophie, no big deal. A defensive foul. Let's watch this one more time. This is on Sophie?
Boom!
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Elbow to the jaw to 14 teeth gone. That's offensive, bruh. Yeah, Sophie, you got your face knocked.
Dave Portnoy is exaggerating the number of missing teeth for comedy, obviously, but his central question is legitimate. What exactly was Sophie supposed to do differently? She appears to be occupying defensive space when the offensive player's elbow catches her in the jaw. The officials did not ignore the sequence. They stopped, reviewed it for a possible hostile act, watched the available angles, and still concluded there was no upgrade against the offensive player. That distinction matters. A missed call during live action can be blamed on speed, positioning, or a blocked view. A reviewed call is different because the officials are given another opportunity to examine the contact. That is why fans reacted so strongly. They were not merely arguing that the referees overlooked something. They were arguing that the league examined the evidence and confirmed a decision that looked backward to them. And later, there is another detail that should concern Indiana fans even more than the ruling. It is not about whether the elbow deserved a flagrant. It is about the message players receive when dangerous contact is reviewed, accepted, and followed by almost no visible resistance from their own bench.
Now, how is that? Now, how is that a foul on Sophie? My mind just can't wrap around that. 2, where is Stephanie White, Austin Kelly, Brianne January, whoever that other coach is? Where are any of them speaking to the officials seeming pissed off? Why do they all just seem so okay with this being called a defense?
Watch the people around Sophie after the ruling. Portnoy immediately shifts his attention from the officials to the Fever coaching staff. That is an important change in the argument, because Indiana cannot control every whistle, but it can control how forcefully it advocates for its players. A coach does not need to get ejected every time a call goes wrong. Constant technical fouls eventually become performative and can hurt the team. But there is a difference between maintaining control and appearing passive. When your player has just absorbed contact to the face, fans expect somebody on the sideline to demand an explanation. They want the head coach pressing the officials. They want assistants making it clear that the team noticed. They want the opponent to understand that contact around the head will not simply be treated as another ordinary possession. The frustration surrounding Stephanie White is not only about this one sequence. It connects to a growing belief among some Fever supporters that Indiana's players are repeatedly placed in physical situations without receiving enough public protection from the organization. That perception can become powerful even when the internal reality is more complicated. Once fans decide the team is not defending its own players, every calm reaction looks like weakness, and every diplomatic press conference sounds like avoidance.
The foul. You got this guy trying to calm her down. You got Brianne January saying, relax, relax. You got Austin Kelly going to sit down. And Stephanie White is over here, I'm sure, with her arms crossed, twitching away.
Brianne January appears to be trying to settle Sophie down. Austin Kelly moves back toward the bench, and Stephanie White does not provide the explosive confrontation Portnoy wanted to see. There may be a practical explanation. Coaches often know that once a review is complete, arguing will not reverse the ruling. They may be trying to prevent a technical foul or keep an emotional player available in a close game. But basketball is not managed only through the rulebook. It is managed through relationships, pressure, reputation, and the boundaries teams establish over time. Officials are human, opponents are watching, Players are watching. When the response to questionable contact is always measured, the team risks creating the impression that there is no cost for testing those boundaries. That does not prove the referees are targeting Sophie Cunningham, and it certainly does not prove a coordinated effort against Indiana. It does explain why this clip traveled so quickly. Viewers did not see only a bad call. They saw a player hit in the face, blamed for the collision, and then calmed down by her own side while everybody else prepared for the next possession.
Then we have Olivia Miles kicking her feet out on Caitlin Clark. We have Olivia Miles smacking Sophie Cunningham, smacking Kelsey Mitchell in the face. Now here's the thing. If you want to tell me that this Caitlin Clark, that her feet hitting Caitlin Clark is an accident, fine. I'm not going to sit here and go back and forth with you. But if you want to tell me that her hitting Kelsey Mitchell in the face here is on purpose, is an accident, that I'm not going to listen to.
Then the controversy widened. Olivia Miles was involved in two separate moments that drew attention: apparent contact to Kelsey Mitchell's face, and a later airborne sequence involving Caitlin Clark. These plays should not automatically be grouped together because they are different types of contact and require different standards of judgment. The Clark sequence is difficult to label as intentional from the footage described here. Players extend their legs while adjusting in the air, avoiding defenders, finishing creatively, or trying to maintain balance. An awkward movement can still be dangerous without being deliberately malicious. Intent should not be assigned simply because the result looks bad in slow motion. The Mitchell contact presents a different question. If a hand strikes a defender's face and affects her ability to continue the play, officials should evaluate whether an illegal advantage was created. That does not require turning Miles into a villain. It requires applying the same standard regardless of which uniform is involved. This is where officiating debates become distorted. One side wants every disputed collision treated as proof of corruption. The other side dismisses everything as normal basketball. Neither approach is useful. The fair question is whether comparable actions are being judged consistently. If an offensive elbow is usually treated as illegal when it dislodges a defender, why did this one remain a defensive foul? If face contact is enough to interrupt a defender, was it acknowledged? Consistency is the foundation of credibility.
If you want to say her kicking her feet out like this, I kind of get it. It's a natural Let's just say I'm not going to argue this. I've seen enough players trying to be fancy, kicking their feet out, making things look cool. Terrible timing. Okay, I could chalk it up to terrible timing. Fine. We'll chalk it up to terrible timing.
Even the original commentary concedes that the contact involving Clark may have resulted from terrible timing rather than intent. That concession is important because skepticism becomes more persuasive when it does not pretend every questionable play is part of the same conspiracy. Players move at full speed. Bodies collide. Feet become tangled. A defender can be injured on a completely legal action, and an offensive player can commit a dangerous foul without intending to hurt anyone. The official's responsibility is to judge the act, not read somebody's mind. Was the movement natural? Did it create illegal contact? Was it reckless? Did it involve the head or landing space? Those are the questions that should determine the ruling. The problem for the WNBA is that fans no longer evaluate these moments in isolation. Every controversial play is added to a running archive. Caitlin Clark gets knocked down, Sophie Cunningham gets struck, Kelsey Mitchell reacts to face contact, and viewers connect all of it into a single narrative about Indiana being treated differently. Once that narrative is established, the league needs more than a statement saying the officials made a judgment call. It needs visible consistency across games.
But if we look before that, look at this. So Kelsey Mitchell, does Kelsey Mitchell flop? There's a lot of things you can say about Kelsey Mitchell's game, right? She's selfish, she dribbles too much, whatever. Does Kelsey Mitchell flop? Does Kelsey Mitchell ever exaggerate calls? Does Kelsey Mitchell ever embellish? You can accuse her of a lot of things, but those are not one of them. So Kelsey Mitchell is just going to act like she got hit in the face just to act like she got hit.
Kelsey Mitchell's reputation becomes part of the evidence here. The argument is not that she can never exaggerate contact because no player should be treated as incapable of selling a call. The argument is that Mitchell is not generally known for abandoning a live possession to perform for the officials. She is known for playing through contact, getting back up, and continuing to attack. That makes her immediate reaction worth examining. Reputation cannot replace video evidence, but it can provide context. When a player who rarely complains suddenly stops and reaches toward her face, viewers naturally assume something meaningful happened. The officials may have missed the angle, considered the contact incidental, or determined it did not affect the possession enough to warrant a whistle. Any of those explanations is possible, but this is also why transparency would help. Fans are asked to accept major decisions without hearing the reasoning behind them. In other sports, supporters can sometimes hear officials announce what was reviewed and why a ruling changed. In basketball, the explanation is often reduced to a short signal and a final result. That leaves an information vacuum, and social media fills that vacuum with suspicion. A league experiencing rapid growth cannot behave as though officiating communication is a minor issue. More viewers mean more cameras, more slow-motion analysis, more gambling interest, and more people comparing one game against another. The standard is no longer whether the crew can complete the contest. The standard is whether millions of viewers believe the rules are being applied in a coherent way.
In the face, right? Kelsey Mitchell's going to act like she got hit in the face and quit on the play just to act like she got hit on the face and try to sell a call. Which Kelsey Mitchell doesn't do. And then we got this kicking the feet out. I mean, it just doesn't look good. Again, I'm not going to accuse this of being intentional because I don't feel like I have as much of a leg to stand on because I've seen this before. Unnecessary, yes. Intentional, I'm not going to make that argument.
Now look at how quickly the discussion moves from one missed call to the credibility of the entire league. That escalation may seem unfair, but it is predictable. Trust is cumulative. Supporters tolerate individual mistakes when they believe the overall system is competent and accountable. When that confidence is already damaged, one strange ruling becomes confirmation of everything they suspected. Indiana is also an unusually sensitive team in this environment because its games receive enormous scrutiny. Caitlin Clark attracts viewers who may watch few other WNBA matchups. Sophie Cunningham has become a polarizing figure with a highly engaged following. Kelsey Mitchell is a respected veteran whose scoring performances are followed closely. Any officiating controversy involving that group immediately reaches an audience far larger than the audience for a typical regular season dispute. That spotlight creates pressure in both directions. Fever supporters will analyze every frame and sometimes interpret ordinary physical play as persecution. Opposing fans will become defensive and assume every complaint is an attempt to give Indiana special treatment. The league has to operate between those extremes. It cannot protect the Fever from normal basketball, but it also cannot appear indifferent when clear head contact occurs. This is the deeper issue Portnoy is touching, even beneath the jokes. The WNBA wants the attention surrounding Indiana, but attention comes with inspection. The league benefits from the television audience, ticket demand, merchandise sales, and online engagement attached to these players. It cannot then act surprised when those same viewers demand explanations for controversial decisions.
But this right here? Slapping Kelsey Mitchell in the face? Somebody like Kelsey Mitchell reacting like that? Who never flops? Who doesn't try to sell calls? Who you knock down 20 times, she gets up 21 times? Yeah, I'm not going to put that on Kelsey Mitchell's jacket. And this Sophie Cunningham play of her getting elbowed in the face, somehow being a defensive foul on Sophie Cunningham. Defensive foul, Sophie Cunningham headbutting an elbow, 15 yards.
The Sophie Cunningham ruling is the strongest piece of the controversy because the visual is easy to understand. She is hit in the face, and the foul remains assigned to her. That does not automatically mean the officials ignored the elbow. They may have determined that Cunningham committed the initial defensive infraction before the contact occurred. In basketball, the first illegal act can establish the foul even when the aftermath looks more dramatic. That is the most reasonable defense of the ruling. Perhaps Sophie displaced the offensive player, entered an illegal guarding position, or created the contact sequence before the elbow reached her jaw. If that is what the crew saw, the defensive foul could technically stand. But that explanation still does not completely resolve the hostile act review. A defensive foul and an additional offensive penalty can both exist within the same sequence. The fact that Sophie may have fouled first does not make all subsequent contact irrelevant. Officials can decide that the defender committed the original foul, while also determining that an elbow was excessive, unnecessary, or worthy of an upgrade. This is where the ruling loses many viewers. They are not demanding that every accidental elbow lead to an ejection. They are asking why contact directly to the face, severe enough to produce such an obvious reaction, resulted in no additional consequence after review. Without a detailed explanation, the decision feels less like a technical interpretation and more like the officials refusing to acknowledge what everyone could see.
Take a look at some reactions. Yeah, we're about to see a run of aggressive fouls against Sophie Cunningham go uncalled by WNBA officials like we've never seen. She was getting fouled yesterday. WNBA is pure trash. WNBA is far more corrupt than the NBA, and that's saying a lot. I agree. If they think a league... The WNBA is sort of a microcosm. WNBA refs called a foul on Sophie Cunningham for hitting a player's full-speed elbow with her jaw while standing still, sending a message to any other player who wants to stand up for women.
The public reaction immediately became more extreme. Some commenters predicted that officials would allow increasingly aggressive contact against Sophie. Others called the league corrupt, or suggested the ruling was designed to send a political message. Those are serious accusations, and the available footage does not prove them. There is no verified evidence in this transcript of a coordinated officiating campaign against Cunningham, Clark, Mitchell, or the Fever. There is also no verified evidence that the call was connected to Sophie's public positions outside basketball. A controversial ruling can be incompetence, inconsistency, or an ordinary interpretation that viewers dislike. It does not become political retaliation simply because social media users say it is. Still, the league should not dismiss that reaction as meaningless noise. When large numbers of customers reach the most damaging possible conclusion, the institution has a credibility problem even if the conclusion itself is unsupported. The correct response is not to validate conspiracy theories. It is to reduce the uncertainty that allows them to flourish. Release the explanation. Clarify which action created the defensive foul. Explain why the elbow did not meet the standard for a hostile act or flagrant penalty. Use the same language officials are trained to use. The league does not have to satisfy every angry fan, but it should demonstrate that there is a consistent process behind the decision. Silence makes the most dramatic interpretation feel stronger. Transparency gives reasonable viewers something concrete to evaluate.
Absolutely insane what's happening in this league. I wish Sophie and Caitlin would just leave this league. The league doesn't deserve them. They're sending a message. They're trying to run her and Cece out of the league. Damn. Thank you, Dave. While a woman like Sophie Cunningham defends women's rights based on sex, the coach of the opposing team defends the mutilation and hormonal treatment of minors and the erasure of women. Damn.
This is also where the debate stops being only about officiating and becomes entangled with the cultural battle surrounding Sophie Cunningham. Some people see her as a player willing to defend teammates and speak openly on controversial issues. Others see her public image very differently. Those divisions now affect how every basketball incident involving her is interpreted. Supporters believe she is being punished for refusing to follow the league's preferred politics. Critics believe her fans turn routine contact into evidence of persecution. Both sides arrive at the footage with their conclusion already prepared. That is dangerous for the WNBA because basketball decisions should not require political decoding. A foul should be explainable through positioning, contact, advantage, and the written rules. The more the league allows uncertainty to linger, the more each whistle becomes another symbolic fight between groups that no longer trust one another. And this brings us to the central answer that was held back earlier. The most damaging part of this incident is not necessarily that one crew made a controversial call. Officials in every league make mistakes. The damaging part is that the WNBA has created an environment in which a bad or poorly explained call is immediately believable as something more sinister. That is a trust failure. It is built from inconsistent physicality, unclear review outcomes, limited public explanations, previous complaints from players and coaches, and an audience that believes some stars receive a different whistle from others. Whether that belief is statistically accurate is a separate question. The perception is already affecting how the product is consumed.
I'm telling you. Shout out to John the Liquidator. I'm telling you right now. We just need to investigate the league on betting. Just open up the floodgates, investigate the league on betting, game fixing, point shaving, prop bets. Take a peek behind the WNBA curtain.
The original commentary then makes an enormous leap, calling for investigations into betting, game fixing, point shaving, money laundering, and other criminal activity. Those allegations are not supported by evidence presented in this transcript, so they should not be repeated as established fact. A strange foul call is not proof of gambling corruption. Even a pattern of inconsistent officiating would not by itself demonstrate that games are being manipulated for bets. Claims involving point shaving or financial crimes require records, communications, suspicious betting movement, credible witnesses, or an official investigation. None of that has been provided here. But the reason those accusations gain traction is worth discussing. Professional sports are now deeply connected to gambling markets. Fans see betting advertisements, live odds, player props, and partnerships surrounding the games. That commercial relationship raises the stakes of every unusual decision. A whistle no longer affects only the score. It can affect spreads, totals, individual statistics, fantasy contests, and thousands of wagers. Because of that reality, leagues must treat officiating credibility as a financial integrity issue. They need strong internal monitoring, clear separation between officials and gambling interests, review systems that identify unusual patterns, and public accountability when errors occur. Calling for responsible oversight is reasonable. Declaring corruption without evidence is not. The WNBA should understand the distinction. It does not need to launch a criminal investigation every time fans dislike a call. It does need systems strong enough that serious people can trust the competition even when a decision is unpopular.
Because the last 30 years, a lot of money laundering going on, a lot of embezzlement going on, a lot of money washing going on, a lot of paying off going on. I would bet that there is some rampant gambling going on in the WNBA, and for some reason, nobody's willing to investigate. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. That means so much to me. See you next time, and as always.
So where does this leave Sophie Cunningham, Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and the Fever? First, Indiana has to become more assertive without losing control. The coaching staff should ask for explanations, use available challenge procedures intelligently, document recurring concerns, and defend its players publicly when the evidence supports it. That does not mean accusing officials of corruption. It means refusing to let dangerous contact become normalized. Second, the players must continue competing without allowing the controversy to dictate their behavior. Sophie's emotional reaction is understandable, but opponents would benefit if she became distracted, earned technical fouls, or started retaliating. The strongest response is disciplined physicality, clear communication with officials, and forcing the league to evaluate the original contact rather than a reaction afterward. Third, the WNBA needs to recognize that its old communication habits do not fit its new level of attention. This league is being watched frame by frame. A brief ruling with no detailed explanation may have been enough when fewer people were analyzing every possession. It is not enough now. The audience wants to know what the officials saw, what rule they applied, and why the review produced that outcome. There is also a responsibility on fans and commentators. Criticize the ruling as aggressively as the evidence allows. Question whether the standard was consistent. Demand transparency. But do not turn an unexplained elbow into proof of political retaliation, organized game fixing, or financial crime without verified evidence. Overstating the case gives the league an excuse to dismiss legitimate criticism along with the reckless claims. The strongest argument is already sitting in the footage. Sophie Cunningham absorbed visible contact to the face. The play was reviewed. The foul remained on her. The additional contact was not upgraded. That sequence deserves a clear basketball explanation. Until one is provided, people will continue filling in the missing answer themselves, and the Fever cannot pretend this is only social media drama. These incidents influence player safety, team morale, fan trust, and the way opponents approach Indiana. If players believe head contact will not be punished consistently, the game becomes more dangerous. If supporters believe the team will not stand up for its stars, frustration shifts from the referees toward the coaching staff. If the league refuses to explain difficult rulings, every future controversy begins with less trust than the one before it. That is why Portnoy's reaction exploded. It was loud, sarcastic, and at times unsupported. But it captured the basic confusion millions of viewers felt. How does the player taking the elbow end up responsible for the foul? And why did a full review fail to produce any additional penalty? Now you have to choose. Was this simply a badly explained basketball ruling that looks worse in slow motion, or is it another sign that the WNBA's officiating standards are failing the players and the audience? Leave your verdict in the comments, like the video, and subscribe for the next breakdown.